Welcome to the RGK Report.
Welcome to the RGK Report. Just a fun little podcast that I decided to throw together because I'm a huge basketball fan and I love talking basketball, so I thought why not set up a little camera and talk to myself and broadcast my thoughts and views to the world, just concerning the NBA, NCAA, international basketball, high school basketball, prep basketball, all kinds of basketball. So here we go. Probably going to make this a 30-minute episode. Just nice, short and sweet, nothing too crazy. So yeah, let's get right into it. So obviously, Thursday, February 6th is the NBA trade deadline. When you guys see this, it'll be Wednesday evening, so the night before the trade deadline eve. Pretty big night in the NBA for a lot of NBA fans. We're all excited to see what trades go down. Today, the day that I'm recording this, it's Tuesday, so today we saw the questionable trade of Caleb Martin for Quentin Grimes go down. Not sure what that trade was about. Doesn't really make much sense from Dallas's perspective because they traded someone who was younger, more potential for somebody who was older. I wouldn't necessarily say less potential, but I'd say his ceiling's probably reached as a almost 30-year-old. So it seems the fire sale that Nico Harrison started is ongoing. Lots of questions surrounding Dallas right now, lots of theories, lots of rumors, but not sure what's going on there. But as of today, we've seen that trade. We've seen the extremely unexpected Luka Doncic trade, which really shocked all of us. Still not sure why Dallas would trade away somebody who's 25 years old and one of the best players in the entire NBA. Seems like maybe there were some ulterior motives going on just based on what I've seen on Twitter. Not really sure what the case was, but regardless, the fact of the matter is Nico Harrison, the Dallas Mavericks, they traded away Luka Doncic, a 25-year-old superstar, for a slightly older, completely different position, completely different play style minded player in Anthony Davis. Not sure what their goals were there, but they've said that defense wins championships, and if they think that and past his prime Kyrie Irving and a past his prime Klay Thompson can lead Dallas to a championship and gives them a better chance of doing so than Luka Doncic, then they can by all means try that experiment out and become probably the unanimously agreed laughingstock of the NBA. But that was the big trade so far in trade season, the questionable trade of Luka Doncic. Then we saw De'Aaron Fox's trade, which was pretty inevitable. I think the big winners of that trade are obviously the San Antonio Spurs. They currently, I believe, they're an 11th seed. But after this trade, who knows the push they'll be making after the All-Star break. De'Aaron Fox is a more than capable guard that you're putting next to a superstar talent in Victor Wembanyama. They have the veteran leadership of Chris Paul at the point guard, so you have a nice three-man trio there to lead the Spurs, and you have lots and lots of great complementary pieces in Stephon Castle, who San Antonio was surprisingly able to keep around in the Fox trade. You've got Keldon Johnson, you've got Devin Vassell, you've got Harrison Barnes, you've got a whole bunch of pieces, even Julian Champagnie, who's been great for them this season. So they still have a lot of great complementary pieces, and they've got a really solid duo in Fox and Wembanyama. So I'm really interested to see how that pairing works out in the second half of the season here. I think San Antonio will probably make a solid push for top 6, top 7 seed in the West and make a solid playoff push. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship or go any further than the first or second round, but I think this is going to be the first year that we're going to see a real takeover by Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox, and I think these guys are going to be a great duo for many, many years to come. So those were the two biggest trades so far. Now, the idea that I had was just going through every NBA team and discussing different trade scenarios, who the tradable pieces for each team are. So we can start with the first seed in the Eastern Conference. It's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Based on the reporting I've seen, just from various sources on Twitter and things like that, it seems like Cleveland's really trying to make a push to improve their small forward position, which they've been trying to do for what seems like forever. They've got a really, really great backcourt in Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. They're obviously leading their team to a 40-5 record or something like that. Um, so their backcourt's not the issue. They've got a really, really solid front court in Evan Mobley and Yusuf Nurkic. I'm sorry, not Yusuf Nurkic. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And then their small forward spot is a little bit of a gaping hole right now. I know they have, I think Isaac Okoro has been there for the last few years, but I don't think he's necessarily cutting it as their starting small forward. They need a legitimate 3-and-D talent. OG Anunoby would have been great for them, but of course the Knicks swooped in there. So from the reporting I've seen, they're interested in Bogdan Bogdanovic from Atlanta and DeAndre Hunter as well. Both of those pieces would be pretty complementary for the offense that they already have going. DeAndre Hunter is a wonderful defender, so he'd definitely come in and add size for them. He's a really great scorer, almost underrated scorer in my opinion. It'd be interesting to see if Atlanta budges off of DeAndre Hunter just because he's a pretty instrumental piece for them, but Atlanta hasn't necessarily seen the success that they'd hoped to see at this point in Trae Young's career. And obviously losing Jalen Johnson's a huge blow for them as well, so we'll see if Atlanta budges and trades DeAndre Hunter. We know Bogdan Bogdanovic is probably out of there just because they've been looking to move him, but it'll be interesting to see if they move Hunter to a team like Cleveland. It'd be a pretty key move for them if Cleveland wants to continue making the push that they've been making all year long. Next up is the Boston Celtics, who I don't think are going to be making any significant moves. Maybe they move a couple of insignificant bench pieces for some stronger bench scorers or bench defenders or things like that. But I mean, their team is almost perfect. They won a championship last year, and they've looked just as strong this year. However, they have had some interesting losses or almost losses, which brings up some concerns. But in my opinion, in those games, what I see is just a lack of effort from Boston. So if they want to win games, they absolutely can. I don't think it's anything wrong with their roster or their system that's making them lose games. I think it's just a lack of effort or sinking down to the level of their opponents. So we'll see. We'll see if Boston does anything, but I highly doubt it. I mean, they're just such a great team. It'd be hard for me to imagine they make any significant moves. Third place in the East is the Knicks. I think some reporting was saying that Mitchell Robinson might be on the table just because they have obviously Karl Anthony Towns and they've been doing really, really well without Mitchell Robinson up till this point. So maybe they look to move him for some more bench scoring pieces. I know they lost Dante DiVincenzo in the Karl Anthony Towns trade, so maybe they look to replace his production a little bit. But for the most part, I think the Knicks are set with their roster for the year. They might move Mitchell Robinson or acquire some other pieces through some minor trades, but for the most part, they're set as well. Fourth place is the Indiana Pacers. I know other teams have interest in some of their guys just because they've had some really, really great success this season. And they have really intriguing pieces that are off the bench and some starting as well. A lot of younger pieces that a lot of teams would be very interested in having on their roster. I know Benedict Mathurin's one of them, but I don't think Indiana is moving off of him anytime soon. Obviously, Andrew Nembhard's a really solid bench point guard for them. I don't see Indiana wanting to move any of them. Obviously, Miles Turner's name has come up in a few rumors, but unless the trade offer is really, really intriguing to Indiana, I don't see them making a move to trade away their starting center. Unless there's financial implications where they feel they're not going to be able to re-sign Miles Turner or things like that. I don't see them making a move, especially given that they're fourth in the East after starting off the year relatively slow. So I don't think Indiana is going to make too significant of trades. They have a pretty solid roster set for them. We'll see, maybe Miles Turner gets moved, but I don't think that's happening. Fifth place is the Bucks, which is, I mean, obviously the roster tells you why they're in fifth, but they started the year off extremely slow and they've really clawed their way back into the top five in the East. I know they're looking to make some moves to go from fifth to like third-ish just to solidify themselves as contenders and really put a solid roster built around Dame and Giannis. Maybe Brook Lopez is on the move. I know they're shopping Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton to try and get some really really solid bench pieces. Maybe a better center than Brook Lopez. I'm not sure. But maybe we see some movement out of them. I know there was reporting today that they really want to go out and get Kyle Kuzma, who'd be a really nice piece alongside Dame and Giannis. I know Kyle Kuzma's kind of fallen off the rocker a little bit over the last couple of years, but I think that's just because he's stuck in Washington, and we know how horrible Washington is. At this point, it's like, don't be that team, as Kyle Kuzma said, making fun of the Pistons last year. But the Wizards are in a rough spot. Clearly, they're tanking, but they also just suck. So it's easy to see why Kuzma's effort hasn't been all the way there. So for him to be traded and put into a system where he has a legitimate chance to contend with the Bucks, I think he'd be more than happy, and I think Milwaukee would be more than happy to have him. That's just going off the reporting I've seen today. They've been trying to move their bench pieces, and they're really interested in Kyle Kuzma or maybe some other difference makers like that. Maybe they're interested in a DeAndre Hunter or Bogdan Bogdanovic to come in there and fill in that sort of big gaping hole that Chris Middleton's left in their offense, which is a tough situation just because we know how skilled Middleton is. But given his injury history and things like that, he hasn't been up to par with what his expected play is. So maybe they look to move him. I know they've been involved in the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes as well, but I don't think Jimmy's going to end up anywhere except for Phoenix. Obviously, that's a whole other fiasco that I'll get into a little bit later, but I don't think Jimmy ends up in Milwaukee. We'll see if they make a push for anybody else, but as of right now, I think they might move Middleton. Maybe they acquire Kuzma, but we'll see. Of those top 5 teams in the East, I think they'll probably make the most significant moves, and maybe they make a jump up the standings in the second half of the season, but we'll see. I'm 50-50 on them making a trade because there's been rumors, but nothing solid. So we'll see what Milwaukee does. And then number 6 is obviously the Miami Heat. Outside of the whole Jimmy Butler situation, we've seen great bright spots in their offense with Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, who's had a little bit of an interesting year. It seems like he's trying to change his play style up, which I think that can be the only explanation for him performing so uniquely, I'll say. But he's obviously a very skilled big in the NBA, and he's going to continue to evolve his game. So I think Miami's tandem of Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo is going to be there for a long time. Then we've seen bright spots from their rookie Kel'el Ware, who's obviously he's a great backup to Bam, but I think they're in a bit of a tough spot because you kind of have to start him given the way he's been playing. So he's been a great bright spot for them. Hero's great, Adebayo's great. So outside of Jimmy Butler, everything's great. It'll be interesting to see what return, if any, at this point they get for Jimmy Butler. If they do end up trading Jimmy Butler, which I think that's the goal, obviously, just given on the reporting that we've been seeing. But if they do end up trading Jimmy Butler, I think the goal is going to be to get one significant piece and a whole bunch of other solid maybe bench pieces, maybe complementary defending pieces. But given how that, depending on how that Jimmy Butler trade works out, we'll see the pieces that they add to Hero and Adebayo and some of the other younger guys, like Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic. All those guys have been great. We'll see what Miami does with a little over 48 hours left until the actual deadline, or a little less now, just when I'm recording this. So we will see what Miami does with that whole Jimmy Butler situation. Number 7, surprisingly, for the first time in a long time, is the Detroit Pistons. It took them ages and ages and ages to get here, but after the successful draft of Cade Cunningham, they've looked really solid as pieces have formed around him. They've really been a surprise this season. We'll see if they get involved on any complementary pieces to come in there and help Cade out and take some of that offensive load off of his game, so he can play maybe a bit more free. But it'll be interesting. I haven't heard Detroit's name pop up too much in different trade scenarios and different reports. But once trade deadline day comes around, trades start happening that weren't reported or weren't rumored to happen. So we'll see. I mean, Detroit tends to be one of those teams that comes in at the last minute and makes some solid trades, or at least in the last couple of years they have been. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Detroit's one of the teams that are looking to move up in the rankings, just given that they're seventh, and we'll see. Maybe they look to make a push for the play-in. Maybe they decide to take a step back and tank for one of the better pieces in this year's draft. But they've got options on the table, which is something they haven't had or haven't had available to them in a long, long time. So good for them. Detroit Pistons fans, I hope you're happy because you guys really went through over the last couple of years, and finally you're at a place where you guys can have some things to be excited about. Number 8, the Orlando Magic. They've had some great success over the last few years in the draft, drafting Wagner and Banchero and Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs and all these pieces. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Orlando makes any moves. I know they've been mentioned as a dark horse team for Jimmy Butler. I don't really see them making that move, and if they did, it would be a bad move for them, just given that they have Wagner and Banchero, and I don't know where Jimmy Butler slots into that. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Maybe they move off of Cole Anthony's contract to pick up somebody like Lonzo Ball. I know they're looking for somebody a little bit better at the guard spot that can provide some scoring punch for them. But yeah, we will see if Orlando makes any moves to try and. I mean, they were touted to be really, really solid this season, but they unfortunately suffered from lots and lots of injuries. So maybe they just stand pat and let this season finish out, and then see how they look once they have some proper time to evaluate all their stars playing together, playing proper games, proper minutes. So we'll see if Orlando makes any moves, but as of right now, I think they're just going to stand pat and just finish the season out. Number 9, the Atlanta Hawks. They are in an interesting position once again because people thought they'd be a lot better than they are now. But yet again, they're stuck in play-in positioning. So maybe the question starts to arise if Trae Young is really, really that guy as a number 1 option. Or maybe he just needs some help over there. I don't know. They tried DeJounte Murray. That situation didn't work out. I think they legitimately just need like a proper shooting guard that can come in there and take the scoring load off of Trae and allow him to be a playmaker. I don't know that they've been involved in any trade talks to bring somebody like that over. We'll see if Atlanta's able to get Trae Young some help. I know they might look to move DeAndre Hunter, Bogdan Bogdanovic, even Clint Capella. It'll be interesting to see, though, because they have a lot of solid pieces on their roster, and they have the flexibility to make some moves, and I think maybe they're a little bit more intrigued to make some moves given that they lost Jalen Johnson this season due to that unfortunate shoulder injury that he suffered. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe Atlanta makes a push for Cooper Flagg to add alongside Trae. I don't know. Maybe they make a tank push to draft somebody like VJ Edgecombe. I'm a huge fan of him. I hope my Raptors draft him. But he'd be pretty solid alongside Trae because he does all those intangible things that teams really, really need. So we'll see. Atlanta has some flexibility that they can work with. Number 10 in the East, Chicago Bulls. We just saw them trade away Zach LaVine and get back a lackluster return. They didn't get back as many picks as they probably should have. I just read a tweet right before I hopped on here saying that they traded Jimmy Butler for Markkanen, LaVine, and Chris Dunn, and that was a great return for Jimmy Butler at the time. And then they turned around and traded those 3 pieces for a lot worse players and not very many assets. So they've essentially fumbled that whole situation quite badly. We'll see. It seems like the Bulls are having a bit of a fire sale as well. Maybe they'll move Vucevic. I know Lonzo Ball is someone that they're considering moving because a lot of contending teams would love to have someone like Lonzo on their squad. So they have Lonzo available. They have Vucevic available. Maybe some of their bench pieces are available, but I know they're looking to move into full rebuild mode and build around some of their rookies like Buse Ellis and I'm not sure who the other rookies are. Forgive me for that, but I know Buzelis has been a standout for them in his first year, and maybe they'll look to draft some more pieces like that. But I know they're about to enter rebuild mode, so Chicago fans, unfortunately, the hope that you guys had with Levine and DeMar and Vucevic and having a pretty solid team on paper, unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to work out. You guys are going to have to go through another rebuild phase here for the next however many years to get back to a point where they can actually be good again. So yeah, it'll be tough for Chicago fans everywhere, unfortunately. Number 11, surprisingly, is Philadelphia, who had a great roster on paper, but due to injuries have had a very lackluster season in terms of performance. I don't know, Joel Embiid is finally making his debut tonight. Or not debut, but he's finally coming back and playing for them after missing quite a few games. So trades wise, I know they just traded Caleb Martin for Quentin Grimes, which is a win for them. They moved one of their relatively inconsistent, I want to say, bench players for a younger piece that can come in and maybe be a spark plug scorer for them. I know Quentin Grimes can really go off sometimes, and he's had quite a few great games this season for Dallas, so he can be a great spark plug for Philadelphia, and he's quite young too. So if Philadelphia needs to pivot in the next couple of years and go full rebuild mode, they have Maxey and Grimes to build off of. So they did make one solid trade. We'll see if they make any other trades. I know there's been some wild rumors out there saying that they might take Jimmy Butler back, but I highly doubt that happening just given how that whole situation ended. Yeah, I know some teams have called on Paul George. I don't think Philadelphia, as much as they would want to maybe move him, I don't think they will. Just given that I know he was promised or there was an understanding between him and the organization that he wasn't going to be moved if he was signing there. But at the same time, it is Daryl Morey, and he's been known to be ruthless with his trades. So maybe they end up making a blockbuster trade, but the situation in Philadelphia is a little bit messy right now. They might benefit from a high draft pick in this year's draft just because of their injuries and Joel Embiid being out for an extended period of time, things like that. So I don't know. We'll see if Philadelphia does anything crazy. I don't know. Things always change on trade deadline day. I'll be reposting everything and leaving my comments and stuff on Twitter for you guys to see on the actual trade deadline on the various trades that go down. So you guys can tune into that. Maybe I'll make a few reels at the end of the trade deadline to cover the day and just go over everything that went down. But yeah, we'll see. A lot of the things that I'm mentioning could be completely wrong or completely right because, as I mentioned, everything on trade deadline day goes a little bit haywire because teams get a little bit desperate or things just end up happening that wouldn't happen on any other day. So we'll see how that works out for Philly and a lot of the other teams that I've mentioned on this list. Number 12 is my own Toronto Raptors. They've got Bruce Brown available for trade. They've got Chris Boucher available. They've got Olynyk available. They've got Davion Mitchell available. Those are just some of their contracts that are going to turn into unrestricted free agency in the summertime. So we'll see if any of those four names get moved. I don't see anybody other than them getting moved just because the Raptors are in a bit of a rebuild situation, and trading away any of their younger guys doesn't really make sense at this juncture. I mean, I know some people on Twitter and things like that were saying that maybe we move RJ Barrett or quickly, but I just don't think we've seen Barrett, Quickly, and Barnes play together enough to write them off like that as of yet. I mean, if a star player becomes available and we want to go out and make a big splash, maybe. But I honestly think, as I've stated on my own personal Twitter a number of times, that we're not going to make too many big moves. Maybe we move Bruce Brown, maybe Boucher, and those other couple of guys that are going into unrestricted free agency. But I don't see us making as big of moves as fans are maybe hoping for. Me personally, I'm not hoping for any other moves. I mean, I'm just happy with the fun, interesting season that we've been having. 8 of 10 games won in our last 10, which I would never have expected given how up and down this team's been. But it's fun. I don't think we're gonna do anything crazy other than the expected stuff. But you never know. It's Masai. He can pull off some interesting things. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for some smaller moves, but at the same time, I'm happy either way. 13th in the East, the Brooklyn Nets. After trading away Dennis Schroeder this year and Dorian Finney-Smith, it looks like they're in a bit of a rebuild. Well, obviously they have been in a rebuild since they traded away Kevin Durant, James Harden, and that trio, Kyrie Irving. I don't know. Maybe I know Cameron Johnson trade talks have been ongoing for the last couple of months, so we'll see if he finally gets moved or if those trade talks stagnate. Maybe some of their other pieces get moved. I know Claxton might be on the trade market, so maybe he's available. But other than that, I don't see them making any big moves just because they have a lot of young players and a lot of bench pieces, and I don't see other teams valuing those bench pieces as much as maybe Brooklyn would hope. So I don't see them making a too big of trades, but we'll see. Again, it's trade deadline day and things happen. So number 14, Hornets. LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Brandon Miller. I mean, they have a really solid squad. They've done a great job rebuilding in the last few years since they had to get rid of Kemba and that squad. I don't know. I know other teams are interested in their guys, but I don't know that Charlotte has interest in too many other guys to make trades with. These bottom few teams here, I don't think they're going to make any big moves. I think they're just going to bottom out and just stand pat until the end of the season and let the draft do its thing. I know a lot of those teams are going to be hoping for Cooper Flag, so we will see. And the number 15 is the Wizards. They might move some pieces like Kuzma, as was mentioned, with Milwaukee and some other teams being interested. But again, these last few teams, like I said, they're just going to tank and hope for that high draft pick. I think just for this episode, covering just the Eastern Conference makes some sense because I don't want to make it too long. But the Western Conference is available. Maybe I'll just run through the teams quickly. Thunder, great. No moves needed other than maybe some bench trades to get some more solid bench pieces, but they're set with picks and players and all sorts of things. Sam Presti seems like an absolutely legendary GM at this point, and OKC is the top of the top right now, so they're going to make a push to contend and win their first ring in a long time. OKC's not doing anything. Memphis, I know they wanted Jimmy Butler, but I don't see them getting him because Butler's not interested in anybody but Phoenix, as he said over and over. I don't know. Memphis, maybe they'll move some of their bench guys and get just all that much better, but they have a lot of solid players already, so and they're the second seed in the West, so they're just going to continue to make that push. I don't think they're good enough to get over that hump of teams like OKC and Denver and LA now with Luka and the Timberwolves, who are surprisingly low on this list. But I don't think the Grizzlies have what it takes to get past that maybe second, third round. But we'll see if they do anything big. The Rockets have a great young core with Jalen Green and the Thompson twin there, and Şengün and Fred VanVleet's nice sometimes, and Jabari Smith is there, and they've got a whole bunch of players on their bench and on their starting lineup, and I think they're set. Seeing them succeed is good. It's a good sign that the rebuild's been going well, so I don't see them doing anything crazy. I know Houston said that they weren't interested in doing anything unless Devin Booker becomes available, which that's not happening. Unless Phoenix just decides to blow everything up, which whether it's now or next year or a little bit after that, I think inevitably they will have to, because the experiment of Beal, Booker, and Durant was never ever going to work. So they're on a downward decline regardless of what happens. Number 4, Denver Nuggets. They've had a bit of a tough season. Jokic has been Jokic, the MVP of the league. Michael Porter Jr. was a name being thrown around in trade talks online and things like that. Jamal Murray is there, I think he's too complimentary a piece to Jokic to move. Maybe they move some of their younger guys on the bench and some of their other contributors, but I don't think they're going to do anything crazy. And they're just going to rely on Jokic to carry them to the depths of the playoffs again. But we'll see what happens there. Number 5, as of right now, is the Los Angeles Lakers. It'll be interesting to see how Luka and LeBron work out. I know they were in the market for a center, and Rob Pelinka earlier today said that there weren't too many great centers available in the trade market. So I know they're interested in Pirtle, Nick Claxton, some of the other bigs that are out there, but I don't think they're going to make any other moves just because they've made the biggest one in maybe franchise history. I don't know. Getting a player of Luka's caliber for them is huge. He's their next big star. So it'll be interesting to see the Luka-LeBron tandem. They've got their other bench pieces as well. So maybe the Lakers become a contender this year. I don't know. We'll see. And then after the top 5, it's the Clippers, Wolves, Mavericks, Kings, Suns, Warriors, Spurs, Blazers, Pelicans, Jazz. Of these teams in the bottom sort of 8-9 teams here, the ones that are probably going to look to make the most moves, maybe the Kings are not done making moves. Maybe the Timberwolves try to trade Julius Randle to undo that trade of Karl-Anthony Towns, which I have no idea why they made in the first place. The Clippers were trying to make some upgrades. I don't know if they will. The Suns, obviously, Jimmy Butler sweepstakes. Maybe Kevin Durant ends up moving. The Warriors are extremely desperate, calling every team in the whole league, trying to get their best players. I don't know. The Warriors are in a tricky situation, trying to put together the last couple of years of Steph Curry before he ends up retiring. Spurs, they got De'Aaron Fox. They're not going to be in 12th for long. Blazers, they might sell and trade some of their pieces away just to get some picks. But they have a solid young core with Shaedon Sharpe and Scoot Henderson and some of their other guys. Denny Avdia has been great for them. So we'll see if Portland makes any moves other than trading some of their older veterans for picks. Pelicans, obviously Brandon Ingram's definitely getting dealt. I don't know if it'll be my Raptors or a different team like Golden State or something else, but Ingram's not going to be a Pelican for too much longer. Zion has had interest from other teams, but he's not getting moved. Maybe some of the other pieces get moved off the bench, but I don't see New Orleans trading anybody other than Ingram and any salaries that are needed to go with him in any trade. And then number 15, you have the Utah Jazz, who they're always looking to get in on trades that are going on in the league. Danny Ainge being the genius that he is, maybe they'll get in on some of these other larger team trades. But that is it for the NBA. The trade deadline is 48 hours, and we still have Jimmy Butler that needs to be moved, and some other smaller names out there. Maybe Kevin Durant's on the trade market now. Who knows? But it's definitely been the biggest trade deadline in my life. Could it be the biggest trade deadline in NBA history? Maybe. But we saw Luka get moved. We saw De'Aaron Fox get moved, and we might see some more stars get moved. So I think it's been a historic one, to say the least. All these teams, all 30 teams in the NBA, obviously their respective fan bases are hoping for this trade or that trade or no trades at all, but we shall see what goes down. Obviously, like I said, on the actual trade deadline, I'll be tweeting out my reactions and thoughts on different things that go down, and I'll create a couple of reactionary reels and YouTube shorts and TikToks and things like that, just giving my thoughts on what happened throughout trade deadline day and what my thoughts are. But as of right now, as I've stated, it's Jimmy Butler. That's the big focus in the NBA around the trade deadline. So we shall see what happens. Thank you all for joining me here today on the first episode of the RGK Report podcast. Looking forward to seeing you guys tune in to all the other episodes that I put out every week. I appreciate having this platform. So thank you guys for listening, and looking forward to trade deadline day. We'll see what happens.